just scanning the landscape. So much room to build activities. Hey there, and welcome back to Channel 64. I'm up on top of Freefall, our drop tower we built in the last episode, and surveilling the lands that we're going to be adding even more builds, including our next one, which is right down here. You can see I've already cleared out a spot where we're going to be adding the floor in, as well as extending the concrete over here. And there's some pigs. Today we're going to be adding in some shops and buildings over here. This is going to be a pretty large build that's going to have, I think, multiple shops inside. I know we've got an area for a gift shop. We have a ride that's going on top of the roof, and then another shop over here that may end up being a restaurant or something of that sort. And so we're going to be putting that together, taking lots of inspiration, like I said, from different parks and attractions. This one actually is coming from some inspiration from downtown Disney in Anaheim, California. All right, and what do we put on top of this building? Why, it's a roller coaster. Not just any roller coaster, but a Wild Mouse roller coaster. Now you may be thinking, what is a Wild Mouse roller coaster? A Wild Mouse is a type of roller coaster that began to appear in amusement parks and traveling fairs in the 1950s. They're best known for their long, tight, winding tracks with an emphasis on sharp, unbanked turns or switchbacks on the top of the ride, and then smaller hills and bunny hops on the lower portion of the ride. They were pretty popular back then, but they started to phase them out in the 1970s and 80s, but then eventually came back in the 1990s as technology got a little bit better. The reason why they came back is because they were cheaper than the larger coasters out there. Also, it was a way for parks to add to their coaster count. So think of them as kind of like a budget roller coaster. You know, one I took inspiration for this build is actually a now defunct Wild Mouse coaster that came out of the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. However, more locally to me, I actually do have a Wild Mouse coaster nearby. But instead of trying to imagine it, let's go ahead and build it. I'm going to hop into a time lapse and get that put together. And the ride is done. Here's the brand new Wild Mouse coaster, Sky Pigs Take Flight. Now, I could stand here and pretend that this was super easy to put together, but I am going insane. Yeah. Pigs and minecarts, not fun to work with. There's some minecart improvements coming in the next update. I know that for sure. And holy cow, do they need it. Anyways, before we get into my laundry list of minecart gripes, let's talk about the actual coaster and the building here. So the building we have is a kind of a modern look style, kind of retail restaurant building. I've taken inspiration from some of the buildings I've seen in downtown Disney in Anaheim, California. And one of them that kind of stood out to me was this very large kind of fun sports bar building that they have. That's the ESPN zone, which actually isn't there anymore, but I don't know what's in that spot or if it's just vacant. But this is the style of the building. To me, it reminds me a lot of like a Chili's, like a chain restaurant or something like that, especially with the raw brick on the outside here. And then of course incorporated some different pops of color with our red sandstone, and of course the smooth sandstone kind of representing stucco up there. And I really like these polished tough blocks as kind of a concrete foundation. I think it stands out a lot better than, say, like, you know, polished andesite or even concrete. You know, I just really like how that stands out a bit. So anyways, to get to the ride, we would enter through the building here. Off to our right, we would have what's probably going to be a restaurant of some sort, or some sort of themed shop. I'm thinking to go along with the ride, maybe some like an airplane or a biplane in here or something. Who knows? I don't really have plans for this space yet, but we have the space. Then anyways, we come through to the queue over here, where we have some optional gates opened for the queue, since we don't have a lot of foot traffic right now. You may see these in modern rides and queues where they are basically allows them to be flexible with how long the queue is, and they can make it longer if there's more people wanting to ride the rides. So we'll go ahead and come on through here. Now the ride itself, of course, is upstairs, as you saw. And then we come on through here and up to the ride platform. So the reason we call it Sky Pigs is because, well, we have pigs and they're ready to go flying. These are our pilots, our piglets. So we have several different pigs on the route here right now, 4 of them, and I'm trying to keep them evenly spaced apart using this system right here. So this is a queuing system that allows the pig carts to be released every 20 seconds. And it's on a timer down below. There's actually a hopper clock down here that is keeping time. Kind of see that. And then what happens is as they come in, they kind of will file into a queue here. And if we need to stop the ride or whatever, we can shut off the clock. They'll all queue up here, and then it'll eventually just let it go through. Another technique that I use as well with the ride are these flashing powered rails. Now, the way this works is you actually take a couple observer clocks and you kind of make them almost in sync but out of sync. And so that allows it to flash a little bit faster. It kind of stays on a little bit more than it stays off, and that gives it this kind of quasi speed that essentially it will keep the cart moving, but it will slow it way down. So we'll see actually when this pig comes out how it's very slow. So now we can actually get on the pig if we need to ride everything. And that also simulates our chain lift right here as well. So I didn't want to just zoom up. I wanted to kind of be nice and slow like a chain lift. And then, of course, going a little bit of a realistic route here, we also have all of the safety walkways for evacuating the ride if need be, or park maintenance. To go along with that, I've done a lot of decoration using our wonderful painting mod. So we've added some different ambiance, clouds, and different barriers. Yeah, very similar to, like, say, an actual real-life Wild Mouse coaster. One that I did take some inspiration from as well, which is Goofy's Sky School. And so we have kind of a similar motif with, you know, the clouds. Don't really have all the flight school stuff because you're just kind of riding these pigs and going around. But yeah, lots of clouds, and especially down below, you can see there's, you know, it really kind of gives a nice effect there. One other thing I wanted to point out is this technique that I used with all the trapdoors. So as you can see, this ride is composed of mostly trapdoors. It's almost 100% copper oxidized trapdoors. And the reason for that, well, a couple reasons. Number one, I love the color of them. I also like this little cross hatching. It reminds me a lot of kind of girders. And then on top of that, it was also pretty thin when you look at it from the side. So because I wanted to kind of simulate what normally these coasters are made of, is kind of like smaller metal beams or pipes. And since we don't really have anything like that in Minecraft outside of like an actual iron bar, which when you stack them side by side, it doesn't look as nice. This works pretty well. But on top of that, we get to simulate floating rails. And the way we can do this is actually, if you place the rails on a trapdoor that's on top, you can actually flip them down and the rails will look suspended. And I think that looks really cool. We actually see that a little bit more in some of the other areas of the ride. So right here we have quite a few suspended rail sections. There's one I had. It was down here. Oh, this is a really good example. So this one we had side trap doors, and you can see here like the whole thing is suspended. You can actually see the carts going overhead as things go by. I think that looks really cool. So did all that. And then, like I said, this pathway, I actually watched real wild... I mean, aside from actually visiting a real Wild Mouse coaster a few times, I actually took reference from the Wild Mouse coaster in Luna Park, simulated the walkways. I wanted the details to be perfect. So this is the actual structure that they have for these maintenance paths in those rides. It's just all very realistic. The layout of this ride is kind of similar to a now defunct Wild Mouse coaster out of Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk in Santa Cruz, of course. And that one actually was decommissioned back in the 70s. But I really liked the way that looked and the nostalgia there. Oh, gotta point out these cool rings. So we have these cloud rings that part of our camelbacks over here that the coasters go through as well. And we layered up a few of those cool paintings to get this nice depth effect. And it looks really cool when you're riding through there. You're kind of going over in these different hills. As well as adding some light using the end rods to kind of simulate some, fluorescent lighting or whatnot. But it looks really nice at night as well. So this is like one of my favorite details of this ride. Aside from the cool, like the pigs flying in the air. I think that was fun. What else? I mean, I've just kind of gone on and on about this stuff. Yeah, so anyways, like I said, it is behaving now, but holy cow, it took me seriously like a few days to get this ride just to cooperate with me. Especially without this queuing system here, trying to sync up the pigs was a nightmare. And even still logging into the world now, I've had to do a little bit of massaging with the ride to make sure that they would be in sync again, because I think server resets and stuff just becomes out of sync. Even that with chunk loading, we do have our chunk loaders. So actually directly below this, below all this is my storage room, and then below all that is of course the super smelter, which we have our chunk loader all the way at the bottom. And I've actually had to redo this. So originally I had a chunk loader that was I think ENXO, I don't know if ENXO4 designed it, but it was showcased in an ENXO4 video. I switched over to one that was created by Azuma. It works a lot better. It's just basically shooting items back and forth. With the boats, it was kind of inconsistent because the boat had to be on a pressure plate in order for it to, dispense. It was just kind of not really working well. And this, at least, if the server restarts or whatever, this system will restart itself up to like thousands of times. So it should be pretty solid. But even with all of that chunk loading, yeah, these pigs still get out of sync sometimes. But yeah, we can get a better view of all the different clouds. Looks very nice at night. Might add a few more floodlights just to kind of light up some of the darker parts of the ride. But I think overall it's pretty realistic to a Wild Mouse coaster. I think this is really, it's a fun concept, and I really like how it came out. I just wish, Minecraft minecarts would cooperate. Oh, I mean, how can we forget? We gotta ride this ride. So anyways, let's do that. We'll wait for this next pig to come around here. And we'll actually ride the coaster. I've been like yapping your ear off. So let's get on bacon here. And the reason, I don't think I mentioned, the reason we have the pigs in the minecarts in the first place, aside from the theming, is because Minecraft treats minecart velocities and the momentum that they have differently depending on whether the minecart has a rider or not. And so originally the idea was that it was just going to be empty minecarts going around. But the problem with that, though, is if I design this ride for a rider, it's going to be different than without a rider, and those minecarts didn't have enough momentum to get through the whole ride. And so I had to find a way to keep it consistent, and the best way I could do that is, well, with a rider always in the minecart. And so that's what we did here. We have, you know, this pig. I originally wanted like 8 pigs in here, but that's way too many. 4 was enough. Got about 20-second spacing through the rides. And yeah, it kind of works out too, because in this queuing system over here, this is actually very similar to what you would see in a roller coaster ride. The operator would normally have you brake here while they are loading and unloading the other roller coaster cart that's in front of you. And so then once you get out here, just hop off. And bid bacon, adieu. I can just watch this for hours. It's so cool. Anyways, I think that's all the time we have in this episode. Like I said, I've talked your ears off about you know, all this type of stuff, and well, I need to go do some stuff. I need to go deliver Wally Waldo. But anyways, until next time, safe travels. Goose some ahead. Goose some ahead. I've got goose some ahead.